So thank you, Host, for having me. It has been really a wonderful time the last days here in Yerevan. As I also don't know really how to call it. We don't need computers for now. You can download it and then put the computers on the side. We go on a bit of a weird journey from starting in my educational background to understand a bit where I'm positioned at, and then look at my inspirations, and then we go deeper and deeper to the edges of the hearable in a way, and I really like to chase this a lot. And then we see how we can listen with our own ears and have a bit of a insight into how our hearing spatially works, how space is used in classical compositions with two examples, and also how technology can help us to use inspirations from nature, from our creative beings to make digital spaces. And that's where the workshop part also comes in, and we make something. The little spoiler, there's on the other room a tracking system, so you can walk in a virtual world. So for everyone who wants to make something, we can test this out later. To my education, I studied in Salzburg, two studies at the same time, multimedia technology in the major augmented reality and game. So it's really hardcore programming, C++, and a day or a night, a week, no sleep, but just coding and debugging. And the other more funny study is multimedia art with a major audio. And then I was in this weird position that I didn't want to really work for an industry, but try to combine these two elements in a internship I had to do. And I found V2, a lab for the unstable media. Now also project manager there, and love the job a lot. Work with a lot of young and older, very talented people who try to make their fascination into tangible works. What I made in my internship was the start of this SPASM project, where you had a little interface there. There's these colorful blue, red, green circles, and they represent sound sources. And then with this little tiny dot here and the nose, you could walk in this virtual world. And it's for headphones. So it's like you would walk in a real world. There's maybe an alarm and there's a washing machine. If you come closer to the washing machine gets louder in your ears. And the same thing with the alarm. And then I mapped these three sounds to the colorful pillars. Special attention to the office desk, recycled office desk chairs. And so I started this whole journey into virtual audio until I started my master studies in The Hague, which is art science. And on the website, they have a wonderful sentence. The art science interfaculty is an interdisciplinary bachelor and master's program that fosters curiosity-driven research as approach for the making of art. Basically, you try to investigate what resonates with you and then go deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole and make works to transport and bring your ideas and research findings across. I came across this paper, A Soundscape in Core Effect Regulation, and the first 2-3 lines is, why do people make detours through parks? Or put differently, why is being exposed to the stimuli in a park pleasant and restorative? Or more general, why may sound influence behavior? And I found this super interesting. Went to many parks, listened a lot, thought, hey, maybe the plants are the thing which gives you a nicer feeling if you have a park, which is like a miniature version of wild nature in an urban environment. And then you have these plants around and they work like a filter, and all this high frequency noise is filtered away, or a bit of it at least. And then your ears have less to do, and then it feels already nicer. Then this led me to this book. If you don't know it, it's really was for me quite world-changing, from Murray Schafer. He describes how the world acoustically works, or in his idea. And in one chapter, he writes about kind of a poetic idea where you have hi-fi and lo-fi soundscapes. So a lo-fi soundscapes would be a city, for example, where you have a lot of broadband noise, a lot of cars, factories, and so on. They make, and you don't hear details. Opposing to that, he says, wild nature is this perfect system. Biologists would highly disagree, but in his musician world, that birds would chirp in their or sing in their frequencies, and other animals, they have like this, their frequency range, and they have this perfect acoustic harmony. And in cities, for example, birds start to sing at night, which is quite opposing the nature we experience them in. And for a different project, I was in Kenya, and then one night I heard this. And there were these thousands of little crickets, which like 100 milliseconds short sounds, but there are millions of them, and it sounds like this ocean of sound, and we got really obsessed with crickets. And then a friend of mine, a smart house, there was a little cricket inside, so I took my recorder and was really, really close to the wall. And I started to make some works with crickets where there were, I don't know, 8 speakers, and you could multiply them and go from fields to really detailed sounds. And this went on and on and on. And then I thought, hey, maybe plants also make sounds. So I went to the botanical garden in Leiden, Holland, and asked them, hey, can I come and record some plants? And then I got my microphones and first started to investigate plants with kinetic motions. For example, this Mimosa pudica, if you touch it, then the leaves go together and it sounds like these really, really tiny papers touching each other. But I made this sound and not the plant by itself. Same thing with the Venus flytrap. At one point they were all closed and I couldn't continue. But I really wanted to make these explorations to start really believing that these sounds make, these plants make sounds. So it's like a story you start to introduce to, because it's a weird thing, you know? You go out and think like, oh, maybe this tree makes a sound. And then I found this paper towards understanding plant bioacoustics, which basically describes an experiment where you have young corn plants and there's a water and where the roots are in the water, and you play sine tones against the roots, and the roots would bend towards the sine tone and make clicking sounds. And I find this super intriguing. And as you see here, they said with 220 hertz it worked best. So I started collecting or buying corn and making corn roots. I'm world's best corn roots grower, by the way. And then started making experiments and found very rarely some clicks. And then I optimized this, made a little sketch, And I mean, this is now super, super accelerated. But at the end, this was my graduation piece, where if we look closer, you have two underwater microphones. They are connected to a mixer and a speaker, which plays a 220 hertz sine tone, and you see this tendency of these roots growing towards this speaker. And there are headphones, and you could listen to a dialogue of young corn plants. And I went to my grandfather at one point, and I actually talked with him about the work. And then he had this wood stash, and in his there was this soft wood, and it was a bit foggy that day, and suddenly I heard all these clickings in this room because the moisture was sucked in by this dried wood, which inspired me to make this work splits and cracks. So I have a really huge slice of pine wood and would stitch heat wire inside and then apply electricity, is like in a toaster, and then it gets warm and this wood starts to crack, and with this 8 piezos you could hear the sound of the crackling wood. I showed this as an installation piece and also as a sound recording. Then I was a bit stuck, didn't know what to do until I found this project, or they found me. Klimaalps, it's a climate education program in Austria, it's an EU project. And they needed an image film with an artistic twist. And I thought, yes, great, let's try it. And apply it with an idea of how the soundscapes of alpine regions change due to climate change. So there were these 6 different alpine regions, like glacier, mountain forest, lakes, grasslands, and so on. And started building, for example, a microphone for listening to the earth. And I brought a little recording of this. And you can hear really earthworms, little insects, mice, and all kind of things, and get a really different connection to the soil. Also the big grass, if the wind goes over it, you can hear that very clearly. It's a bit like the grass is like the tuning forks of the planet. And if you go outwards, then it could be also the trees and so on, and playing these frequencies of the wind into the soil. Second place I was is the glacier, and put a underwater mic to the glacier, and that sounds like this. And and this was really the most impressive environment also. As you see, this house, this was the research center, the Berliner Hütte. They built in the beginning of 1900s. And you see the glacier coming until the house there. They used it as a fridge in the beginning. And we tried to make a drone shot which captures the situation, how it was and how it is now. I found it really, really fascinating when you're with this microphone next to this glacier and then you hear all these really bombastic, deep sounds, and at the same time you see this waterfall going next to you and have the feeling of, okay, you cannot do nothing against this. And the sound world on this glacier, where there was a lot of snow before and now you have crickets and birds and so on, and it's really changing a lot. And if we go 100% in the other direction, what do we hear if we have no outside sounds anymore? For example, in an anechoic chamber, where a guy like John Cage already thought about in the 60s that the last thing what we hear is the human body. And I brought two little activities with me. The first thing is now we listen for 1 minute to open the ears a little bit. And then we do the second one. I will have a timer here. And I would like you to not make any sound, please. And ignore all the ventilators in the room. Go. Someone want to share something which you heard and which sticks with you? Just a word. I heard a cracking over there. Louder, please.
There's electricity just on the speaker.
Okay.
Some small rectangles.
Something really low also.
Some noise upstairs.
What's that? There's some liquids.
I noticed a change of quality of my attention.
Thank you. And with this change of quality, we're gonna make a little experiment. I don't know how to do it. We have a little bit of space. So it's an exercise for 2 people. Just take the closest partner there is. You can use a chair, or you sit on the floor, or wherever. I need a volunteer. So please. So
I need to be scared?
no, please not.
Should I sit?
Yes, please. So one person sits down and closes the eyes and opens the senses, and the other person really cares about the person opening the senses, so please no loud sounds or something like that. And then you use your hand as a musical instrument. You can, for example, rub, and you can go really close, or use your fingers and use the space, go around or far away and come really close, and just listen, and the other person improvise for 3 minutes. Then we switch, and then we come back. Okay? Go! Please. Maybe we can just move all the rows a bit forward, and then it's easier that one person can just sit and the other person can stand behind. Without touching. So maybe you guys stand up for the person before. Does someone want to do the exercise and has no partner? Please raise your hand. Do we have someone?
I will be your partner.
Okay. Good. I will set the timer for 3 minutes and go. And please be quiet.
Okay, let's be.
Okay, I don't need it now. Okay, slowly come to an end. And then please switch the partners. Just change. I will stay still. And start. slowly come to an end. Thank you. And how was that?
That when the sound is really quiet, you don't hear any reflections, you only hear the direct sound, and that's the most accurate panoramic experience you ever get in the real world.
Yes.
Because it's only very tiny sounds that you don't hear any reflections, that kind of confuses the direction of sound. You can be really precise in direction.
Absolutely. There's another comment.
I just loved the feeling of textures in the sound, because it's like some kind of like beside of hearing what was happening and close and far. I was feeling like hard textures, you know, by all the body. So it was nice. And like goosebumps all the time. Like,
Someone else would like to share something? Here on the side too.
I want to say that actually this exercise has really deep, really ancient roots in the tribal culture. That's what shamans used to do with people, to put them in a trance, and that's what you actually feel when you put yourself in this condition and someone else manipulates you. Your perception is, wow, can be very powerful. Yeah.
That's why you have to be very careful. Yes. I mean, I do this sometimes with kids in workshops, and then you have to really make the safe space, and you cannot have so many people. When some teenager starts clapping or something, then your whole inner being just has a little wound after it. So, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. That was one of the most interesting experiences I've had, because I didn't expect, I realized how sensitive not only my hearing is, but my mind and what happens with my mind with sound. I didn't expect that. I've never done an exercise like that. And it actually, I went between, it was like very attentive to hear the very, very subtle sounds from the beginning, but yet feeling it physically in my body at the same time. It was interesting is not the right word, but it was definitely unique, and yeah, it was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So, with our very attentive mind, we can now go through some charts. This is basic. I brought some charts with me to try to grasp a bit what I did also in the plugin. And it's basically Fletcher-Munson is a diagram of equal loudness perception. Means how much power do I need to have a sound be felt in the same loudness. Then we have frequencies here in the bottom, so we have very low frequencies to very high frequencies. And then little energy to more and more energy on the top. And we see that we have, for low energies, we need, for low frequencies, we need a lot of power. And this reduces until 500 hertz-ish. Then it goes until 1K, and then you have this dip at 4K. Does someone know why we hear 4K the most? Babies. They shout, yeah, the voice also, but mainly babies shout in this frequency range, and so we always hear it. That's pure evolution right there. Then there's the, oh, I see there's some German mixed in. Doesn't matter, I will guide you through. The interaural time difference. It means basically the sounds comes to you straight, then for the left and the right ear, the sound will reach the left and the right ear at the same time. If a sound would come 90 degrees from the right side here, it would take 0.6 milliseconds, and the sound will be 0.6 milliseconds delayed on the other ear, and we can hear, or our brain can process this, so that's part of our spatial hearing perception. This is a second mode of spatial hearing, so that's dependent on the frequency. If you have very low frequencies, they would just, if they comes again from the right side, they would just go through our head, basically, doesn't matter. If the frequencies get higher and higher, they start slowly, the bass frequencies get blocked by the head, they would start bending around your head, and then if the frequencies go higher and higher, so they're really tiny and don't have so much energy, so they get blocked by your head, so you hear less loudness as higher the sound is, and that's why we also heard the spatial perception of these tiny sounds very good, because they don't have so much power to travel to your other ear. So yeah, that's why this perfect binaural hearing comes when we make these tiny sounds next to our ears. And one more thing is the Doppler effect. Everyone heard it already in their life when, I don't know, the ambulance passes by and makes meow. The meow is more the Formula 1 car. It's very hard to mimic ambulance by voice. Let's stick with the Formula 1 car. It makes meow, so the sound comes to you and the waves get squeezed, so it makes this meow. And then the Formula 1 car drives away and takes its sound with it, so the wave gets stretched and the pitch goes meow. And yeah, I find this really fascinating. I'll later with the plugin I'll show you a funny trick with it. And then we go to acoustic room recognition. Basically, how do we hear the space? We have the direct sound, which goes until 50 milliseconds. Then there are the early reflections, which give us a perception of the space, and that happens between the first 50 and 80 milliseconds. And everything after that is the called late reverberations, basically a diffuse sound, and it's everywhere in the whole room. You hear the same kind of echo reverb sound. If you go into a huge cathedral and you shout there, and doesn't matter in which corner you're standing, you will hear everywhere the same kind of sound. These are basically the principles. I said I brought some examples from usage of space in music with me. The first one is from Charles Ives, the unanswered question from 1906. We have a trumpet, which is also called the unanswered question. It stands in front of the audience. Then we have the strings. He calls the silence of the druids, and they are placed off stage. And then a woodwind quartet, which should be as far as possible away from the strings, but also a bit diffused in space. And he wrote that also in his composition. I would like to listen with you a bit. The second example I brought is from Henry Brandt. He wrote until 2004 129 spatial compositions, and he said all music is spatial, space is needed for performance, for audience, and for sound waves to travel, rebound, and be absorbed, and is thus an essential musical element. It might be described as a fourth dimension in music, the other three being pitch, rhythm, and tone quality, sorry. There's one piece I brought with me called Orbits. It was performed in the Guggenheim Museum in New York, and it has 80 trombones, one organ, and one soprano voice. And the Guggenheim Museum is this
Зачем нам просто перед фильмом песен на YouTube появится? Да? Ну, чтобы народ снимает.
the organ and the voice being like this axis. A lot of planetary concepts which he brought to life in his compositions. If we look at generated spaces, so again, how technology can help us to bring all this into life. This is a wave field synthesis system they have in The Hague. It consists of 192 little speakers and I think 20 subwoofers or something. And the idea of it is there you have all your speakers, that you have a virtual sound source, in that case this red dot outside of the space, and instead of a speaker playing a normal sound, it physically simulates the waveform coming to you, and all the speakers play simulate this physical wavefront, and then you really think that, I don't know, let's say a dog barking, that is really a dog barking over there. And but you need a lot of speakers to make that work. And in my case, I used headphones, and I showed you how this plugin looked when I started. Now it's a bit more fancy and it has a 3D space. How can you simulate something in a headphone? Basically, you have 1,200 different points around your head, and with a system like this, you have a microphone in each ear, and this ring consists of a lot of different speakers, and they play a sound from a certain position and record it at the same time for the left and the right ear. And how we heard before, it makes a difference if a sound comes from the left or from the right. So you get a different recording for the left and the right ear called impulse response. And when you take then any sound, if you take a piano, a violin, a synthesizer, or a dog, it's a mathematical thing called convolution, doesn't matter, you manipulate it with these impulse responses, and then you can simulate that a sound comes from somewhere, and then depending how loud it is closer or further away. And I brought a little tutorial, the virtual zoo, with me. And just to show you how it works, I will build the virtual zoo. And go into my Ableton here. I played all that already, we can delete, maybe not all, everything. So for the people who don't know this program, it's called Ableton Live. We can make music with it. And there is a nice way to make your own plugins, and I use this and I like it a lot. I'm just deleting some things so it's easier to show. All right. So the plugin basically consists of a mixer, which you drop into your main, and then you get this virtual room. You have a little head, which you can drag around, and you can also see that this is really a 3D space. Let's go back to the normal view. And then you have a sound channel, which you drop into a sound, if it's audio or MIDI, doesn't matter. You give it a number and a little ball appears. Then if, for example, we start, to check that it's not too loud, the lion sound. Let's move away. It's a bit loud. Yeah, so if you're with your head outside of the circle, you don't hear anything. If you get closer to the center, it gets louder and louder and louder. Now the line stopped, we need to wait for a second. And of course, this works just really good with headphones. That's the whole point of it. And as we have seen before, we can also load a map. Where is my map? I lost my map. It's called map. Here. Okay, never mind. I'll show the map later. Then you can have a second sound source like the monkey. Give it another number, place it somewhere else. And then you can also change how much, of course, the sound spreads into the environment. Switch them on. And if you're between both, you hear both. If you're then, like in the picture, you see the birds are kind of everywhere, then we just add the birds sounds spatially without a plugin. So you just hear it dripping through the whole environment. And this head if you have these headphones, I brought with me on, and there's a little microcontroller. So it gives you the position where you're standing and where you're looking, or how you're turning your head. And all these 9 degrees we're having, or we can turn our head, and the position is fed into the system, and then you see also little head walking around. And then you can physically walk in this virtual world. And you can drop any sample in you want. So the workshop part afterwards is a big invitation for everyone who likes to play around with this plugin. Let's make something out of this. And that was it. Yes. Thank you. There's already one question.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we need the binaural decoder for listening, or it's already in?
It's in. You can, if you want to make things at home, you can just open the plugin, you render it out, and it's a headphone mix, basically. You cannot change it later, but you can make spatial audio really easily with this. And the idea why I came to do this in Ableton is usually in a game engine. You have this since long time, but there you have to, if you make sound for games, for example, you first make your sound, then you export it, then you import it into your game engine, and then you can feel how the environment feels. And I found that very unintuitive and thought it would be nice to really make music in a space.
Really nice. Thanks.
Did you try to play with this in musical production, the musical way? I mean, with the plugin.
I still have the idea to mix my next album and also the other two with this plugin. I don't know if I will be ever able, but I think it's really cool. So many people wear headphones, and headphones are really a different medium than stereo speakers. It has nothing to do with stereo speakers, and it's really a shame that there's not a thing of making headphone music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, everybody like mixing for the speakers inside the room, right?
Yeah.
This is like industry. And do you know about special music for headphones? Like, I don't know.
I mean, there are tendencies in the AirPods. You have the binaural setting, so you can turn your head and the music kind of turns with you or not. I mean, there are tendencies to going there, but it's just scratches on the surface of what's possible. I mean, yeah, one thing I wanted to show and forgot, a little example. So we have a MIDI, sorry for jumping back, but this is really important. So you have a MIDI channel, make whatever note. I hide the map for a second, get rid of all this to make it a bit less noisy. Okay. We have a normal synthesizer. It should play a saw wave. Yes, it does. And then we go and add a channel. And then we can, let's get out of having all this noise the whole time. We can have an audio effect LFO to move the sound around. So this is just in a sine wave now going up and down. We can give it also, random is maybe not a good idea, but give it some jitter. And then we do another LFO. Hello? Where did it go? Here it is. And then we map the Y, and we already can guess what happens, because if you have a sine wave, a saw wave and animate it, the Doppler effect makes it into a mosquito. And then we jitter it a bit more.
Can you make a bass mosquito, like a huge one?
What?
Let's
Big bass
like a
mosquito.
low pitch of mosquito.
It's a little bit fast.
We all know what we can name.
Like this?
Yeah,
You like this?
I like this mosquito, but I'm afraid if he bite me, what he will never do. Yeah. How it works with the reverberation?
You can use sand channels for the early reflection and late reverberation. And then the late reverberation, you do post fader. So this plays always into the space, and you just hear early reflections if it comes close.
So if it comes close, you hear less if you put it after fader.
No, you hear more. The late reverberation is always there.
Okay.
Always. Also in the physical space, it's always there. You just hear it less because the other thing is louder. The early reflections come when the sound is close to you. So let's say the sound is here, and I make a sound. Then the early reflections are all the reflections which come from the wall, from the ceiling, from the bottom, and hit you in the first 50 to 80 milliseconds.
So I to make like two sets, one with early reflections and long distance. And so maybe you can just show.
Yeah. I will show it in a second. Oops. Not this. I wanted to do it here. So here we have already reverb with early reflection. So the diffuse part is 0, and the reflection part is 0. Diffuse part is minus on infinity or minus 30. Reflection part is 0, and the reverb part, the early reflection part is 0, and the diffuse part is 0. No, minus infinity. Oh God, I'm so confused now. So the spasm is here in the group. We make it a bit smaller. And then we turn up. I mean, the mosquito is really not a good example to show reverb, I think. Maybe we add the line again or something. Where is it? Samples, lion. And let's not make him walk around so much. He might get tired. So here, go out. Now we needs to start from the beginning. We'll make our space a bit bigger. Line is far away. Come closer. Loop it. Yes. But you need a microphone, please. Can you give him the mic?
I'm just wondering, while you do this, wouldn't it make more sense to actually, instead of using the sound, just use the second point, which would be like times bigger, to send the wet signal there? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, no matter how far away you are from the main circle right now, I mean from the area around the real spot, right? It doesn't change the quality of the reverb.
Just
you know what I mean?
the late reverberation, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't change at all. So, but it wouldn't if it would be just like two spots in the same area of the space.
But it doesn't. Also, in reality, it never changes. Like the late reverb in a space is always the same wherever. It doesn't matter where I am. It bounces through. I mean, you're after 80 milliseconds, so my sound already bounced off everywhere, and then it's like a spider web of sound, and it doesn't matter where you are in the spider web. It has everywhere the same loudness. That's the thing on digital systems, that you can make your reverb humongous. I mean, this was like 3 seconds or something now. This, you need a big space to have a 3-second delay. And but yeah, it is really confusing. When I started investigating this, it does not make sense, but apparently it's like this. And but putting the whole reverb into the system, I don't know how to do it, because it needs too much processing power, and it's very complicated to have a moving reverb thing. Great. Someone else has a question?
Sorry, I wasn't understanding. You said there's a special button for the headphone that you can have the vertical space for the birds, like up you when you hear the sound. Because the lion, the monkey is in the same
height.
Yeah,
Dimension.
in the same height. So the birds, you say, is like in the sky, right?
Yes, I said with the birds that I don't use any spatialization. I just play the stereo recording in the space, because they are everywhere. And I mean, of course, you could, if you want to make it real, then you maybe need 50 bird sounds and then you let them fly around. But for the tutorial, I tried to be a bit easy.
Understand. So it's all the sounds gonna be in the same height.
No, I mean, right now the line is, if you see, make the side view. Oops, side here. Right now the line is on the side here, and then you can change the Z-axis, and then you can move it up or down. So you can also let the line walk above you.
Understand. Thank you.
The microphone is behind you.
I was thinking about the shape of the room, and why did you choose this kind of shape and not like a sphere, like in ambisonics also? I mean, another question is, do you think it's possible to use this technique also in an ambisonics system, like a multi-channel system with ambisonics technique, like in a sphere, or not?
Theoretically, it's possible, but in an ambisonic system, you need to have like a mono listener for each position where a speaker is. So right now you have one stereo listener, which is the head in this whole environment. And if you want to have an ambisonics translation of this, then you just need a lot of different listeners. And there is a multi-listener version I made, but it's very experimental. And yeah, until now, I think headphones are so different and we need more headphone music. And that's why I make this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Looks like we finished our theoretical
I think
part.
so too. Oh, one more.
Sure.
How do you think that? How do you see the perspective of headphones music? How do we want to use it? What is your next step? I don't know how to ask it, but yeah. What is your plan for it?
My plan is for the plugin to finally make the release version and release it in this new format, because the old version is quite some years old and it doesn't have the whole 3D thing yet. So that's for the plugin. I want to, like I said, for my new album I'm making right now a headphone version where you can deliberately have your headphone mix, which sounds shit on speakers but great on headphones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For everything.